Erling Haaland is an alien. Hello, my name is Wakasa and I'm making my own little web of content, and today I will be once again discussing aliens. Now stay with me now. It'll make sense soon. But according to the Bible, human history started 6,000 years ago. However, based on archaeology, humanity, specifically Homo sapiens, have been around for 60 to 100,000 years. Wait, let me go get my lip gloss. Now, this is something I want to hammer in. The Bible is purposely a simplification of human history for many reasons, but I like to think it's for narrative cohesion. I do to some extent believe that Adam and Eve were real people, but I don't think they were the only people. I think the timeline from Adam to Jesus is purposely just the one bloodline, following one bloodline, and that there's context elsewhere, but it doesn't really matter for the story. This is also one of the reasons why I hate Hebrew Israelites or even Hoteps, because we are not Israelites. Like, I think when you try to tie the different bloodlines that are listed in the Bible into like modern day race or ideas of nationality, no, like this is specifically regional history. And I mean, Africa-wise, I guess the Kushites are part of the history because they traded with them, but sub-Saharan Africa is barely involved. Anyways, something that has stuck with me from my academically sound religion course is my teacher's theory on Nephilims. My teacher was Christian, but he really liked having modern or scientific explanations for miracles, and that's something that does follow me to this day, where I really do value that miracles can be explained, and it doesn't make it any less a miracle. My personal example is baby making or childbirth. Yes, now we know the science behind what makes a baby, how babies come into this world, sort of, kinda, but it doesn't really make it any less a miracle. And what I would say is that finding out all the probabilities that go into making that one thing happen makes it really, like, I understand the magnitude of everything had to fall in place for this to happen the way that it happened. It's a miracle. His theory was that the Nephilims were just foreigners. Because when you think about it, yes, if human history for them started 6,000 years ago, then they entered the global stage 6,000 years ago. But there were other Homo sapiens roaming the earth. So when they finally met the Nephilims, yeah, I guess they're tall and they're big and they're giants. And they, like, it doesn't make any sense how they could be tall, big, a giant. But really it does if you recognize that it's also just a foreigner. This is something that I have discussed before, where alien is a synonym for foreigner, and alien is also a synonym for angels. And Nephilims were the sons of angels. Alien invasion movies are literally the white man's anxiety about colonialism happening to them, because in general, in a tribalist world where there's food scarcity, supply, resource scarcity, yes, a foreigner or a stranger, essentially, because I'm gonna get into it, because it's not really a stranger when you know human migration, human history, right? But yeah, a person who is not of the same tribe is a threat to you. The Nephilims, yes, and I guess in the story how they mythologize them, they were foreigners, but the way that they get mythologized is a threat because resource scarcity. What's interesting is that no matter what you subscribe to, we're all related. We are all distant relatives. If you believe in Adam and Eve, then we all came from Adam and Eve. Yeah, then we're all descendants of Adam and Eve, so we're all family. So it's not really a stranger. And this has to tie with the sign Aquarius, because I think Aquarius is the alien, is the angel, is the foreigner. They have the stereotype about being disillusioned, being detached, because I think they're one of the few signs that genuinely understands human to human, we are all the same. So all the bickering, all the fighting is just like a waste of energy or time to them, because they're like, you're the same thing. You know, why are we going back and forth about good and evil when it really is just a matter of perspective? Like, people mythologize other tribes when it's tribalism as being evil, but they're not evil. They're just trying to survive. What's interesting is that Nephilims are treated as an abomination, and essentially they would have been biracials, you know, so I'll get to that. But what I wanted to bring up was really a video that I just saw recently where someone was saying aliens that procreate with humans, they would be seen as predators, like PD files, you know what I mean? Because essentially their mind, like they are more evolved than us, or like their minds transcend us, like we are not equals to them. So they would be taking advantage of us if they wanted to procreate with us, or they tried to hook up with us, essentially like how humans would prey, or adults could prey on a child. But what I also said in the comments, and I'll link it down below, so you should watch it. But what I also added, because this has to do with levels of consciousness, is like it's essentially like abusing an animal as well, because animals can't consent because we can't communicate with them. And I think communication is very key for consent. And even if a kid said blah, 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 They don't know what they're saying. They're not fully evolved in their mind yet to really know what they're talking about, even if they understand language, because they can't fully communicate. And in the same way, I do think that's part of why Nephilims were treated as an abomination, because, I mean, it has to do, and I mean, in a tribalist world, biracials would be treated the same. But another demographic that I would also bring up are passport bros, where now this is not inherent, like not completely fair, because I do think when it comes to foreigners or like falling in love, hooking up with a foreigner, that is more of a level where you can't consent. But like some people go to these islands, and because they are economically advantaged, they take advantage of people who are not of economic standing. And also, like, sex tourists are going after children. Like, these are all reflections of each other, like fun house reflections of each other. But what I will say, and I actually brought it up in, my Dogman Live or my Dogman Substack, where I was just like, yeah, no, I personally believe that you cannot fully consent if you don't speak the same language, because part of consent is being able to revoke consent. And if you can't communicate, this is what I want to do to you, then they can't agree. And then they also can't revoke it. So part of me is just like, yeah, this is not the same thing. But if you cannot fully communicate, then you cannot fully consent. And that's not fair. We're not able to communicate. You can't communicate with a child. You can't communicate with an animal. And in some cases, when it comes to sex tourism, right, regardless of what demographic they might be, if they can't actually revoke consent once they find out that's what you want to do to them, then they can't consent. I do just want to add that I am not against interracial dating or even people falling in love outside of their economic standing. What I do want to add, though, is that when you are dating someone who is not of the same demographic of you, you do have to be aware of the fact that your lifestyles, how you grew up, has evolved y'all into being different people. And part of y'all coming together is mending the gaps of knowledge about each other. Because I often do think about like, oh yeah, like African men are more compatible with me. I could date outside my race. I could date outside my culture. But there would be work to make sure that we actually match each other, that we're actually equals. And I do think that's part of it, where it's like, if you can't communicate, you can never get there. So okay, that's about it. I recorded this under 8 minutes. What I will say is that there's more that I could talk about, because what I will say, Aquarius is connected to flood myths. And really, the Nephilims were introduced right before Noah's big ark, or like the flood, the great flood. And then it also has to do, I would say, has to do with how we define typical, because it has to do with how we define humanity, define society. So what is typical in one culture could be abnormal in another culture, very alien. And then there was another thing. Oh, technological advancements. But you should just watch the other one. This one, and then there's one that follows it, which is about No Man is an Island. And then I brought it up. It's a live, but it's also / a Substack about Dogman. But thank you so much for watching. I will be back tomorrow. Bye.